don't care.
Hey, Izzy, someone else is doing Lindsay's other part, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why does the United States commitment to the rule of law appeal to other people? How would you explain the meaning of the rule of law? How do American founding documents express the nation's commitment to the rule of law? And when you are ready, you may begin.
According to the Supremacy Clause in Article 6, Section 2, this Constitution shall be the supreme law of the land. Rule of law establishes that no person under the United States Constitution is above or below the law, creating equality among citizens along with the three branches of government. The United States Constitution was established during the Enlightenment, in which John Locke's idea of a social contract inspired colonists to establish a system in which people willingly gave up certain rights for security and government. It also established the rule of law's idea of equality through the phrase, all men are created equal.
The rule of law has three different interpretations. In one interpretation, the term means rule according to law. This means no individual can be ordered by the government to pay civil damages or suffer criminal punishment, except in strict accordance with well-defined and clearly established procedures. In Powell v. Alabama, 9 African Americans were accused of raping 2 Caucasian women, and Alabama officials sprinted through 3 trials in one day. This was a direct violation of the due process rights. The second interpretation is the rule under law, meaning no branch of government is above the law, and no public official may act arbitrarily or unilaterally outside the law. In the Watergate scandal, rule of law was upheld in the United States v. Nixon when the Supreme Court ruled that even the president is not above the law.
Additionally, in this context, it also means that no one citizen is above any other citizen. An example of this is the 15th Amendment, which states that the right to vote should not be abridged by race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Conversely, congressional insider trading allowed for elected officials to buy or sell securities based on information gained on the job, but was recently banned by the Stock Act.
Lastly, the term means rule according to a higher law, which means the government cannot enforce any written law unless it conforms to unwritten universal principles of morality, fairness, and justice. This can be seen in the Supreme Court case Loving v. Virginia, in which 2 people were forbidden to marry due to different races.
The expectation of equality is not protected in other nations. In the Middle East, specifically in Afghanistan, the Taliban established an oppressive regime that administers cruel public punishment, limits women's educations, and prevents access to the free market of ideas. This can be seen in recent events in which a young Pakistani girl was shot after advocating for women's education.
People under a government that lacks rule of law often desire equality and rights, so they look to the United States system as an example. This can be seen in documents of other nations where parts of our Declaration of Independence are apparent. In France's Declaration of Rights in 1789, key phrases such as inalienable and sacred rights of man and free communication demonstrate inspiration from the United States Constitution.
Through the rule of law, power is divided, allowing citizens to have power, make changes, and ultimately hold the government accountable with specific rules and laws they must adhere to. The United States' commitment to the rule of law is seen through the constant edits, additions, or occasional abandonments to documents, such as the Articles of Confederation.
In the Declaration of Independence, commitment to the rule of law was seen in the list of grievances, when the colonists were willing to call out their king in order to escape from a tyrannical leader and form a better society. The 10th Amendment of the Bill of Rights states that powers not delegated by the Constitution are reserved to the states of the people. Through this, the rule under law is being upheld because it ensures that the Constitution is the law of land and that the government power is not above the citizens in making laws and establishing powers and protecting equality.
The preamble to the Constitution begins with the phrase, "we, the people." It was not a dictator or king claiming divine right, but the people that ensured justice, domestic tranquility, and secured the blessings of liberty. Society is not perfect, making our Constitution imperfect. However, history has shown that our system, by enforcing rule of law, has the capability to improve along with society. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Doesn't the fact that we allow states to have sovereign immunity, the president to have executive immunity, and Congress to have congressional immunity establish that we don't really believe in the rule of law?
Well, the fact that specifically with the presidents having immunity, with the case with the Iran-Contra affair after President Reagan was going to be impeached and the vice president took over, this was proven that while they say it was because he was above the rule of law, instead ultimately we had to look at the needs of our country rather than trying to focus on punishing a president for something that they had done. So ultimately what we need to do when applying the rule of law is look at the outcome and look at how it affects the people, and if the needs of the people are greater, then we need to focus on that instead.
The rule of law, it is the law, but at the same time, we have to look at higher law, because if we just followed the law, there would be nothing that could get done in states of emergencies where the country needs to make certain things available.
America established itself as a historical exception in regards to self-government, as well as preached that our nation has always been a quote-unquote city upon a hill in representing human ideals. Does your understanding of American history confirm or challenge these ideas?
I would say it confirms. If you look at the time period in which our Constitution was developed, it was almost a perfect storm. With the Enlightenment, with the colonial experience, and with the men who were there, delegated to the Philadelphia Convention, there was such a perfect way to create rights and balance of government that I don't know if it'll ever be seen again.
Furthermore, the idea that our Constitution and the United States is a city upon a hill can be seen with the fact that we are open-minded to a lot of ideals. However, these ideals weren't just like randomly come upon. These ideals had to be fought through like civil disobedience portrayed in the civil rights movement, and also protesting such as Susan B. Anthony advocating for women's suffrage. However, our Constitution is appealing to other nations, such as in Egypt, when they are trying to form a constitution that is outlining a lot of the due process rights and rights that we have in our own constitution. So it gives this idea that in fact we are a city upon a hill, since we have such great influence on other countries.
In other ways that we're not a city upon the hill, and this can be seen in some of the things that we've done in the past, starting with slavery and not outlawing slavery from the very beginning. We allowed that institution to continue, and it took a civil war to finally end that. And also we had the internment of Japanese during World War II, which was an example of us not really following what we believed, and instead turning to like a worse side of human nature.
Why have most new or emerging democracies chosen to develop parliamentary systems of government rather than our presidential system?
I think one key factor is the size. Our nation is very large, and so naturally no one law could be custom for all states, as we see with the 10th Amendment giving those states power to make certain laws. But with other nations where it's smaller, a uniform, more centralized government that does not have a balanced federalism between states and national government isn't necessary.
And because of this, as she had mentioned with the states, between the federal and the state governments, it doesn't offer the double security, which would give ultimately executive power more power than they would be able to. So that would go over the rule of law. As Annie had mentioned earlier, it was a perfect storm when coming up with the events to get our Constitution, because of the fact that we were able to establish the double security to prevent the absolute negative in the legislative branch. This absolute negative could possibly happen within the executive branch, though, in other countries, because they don't have the states within the country.
Is rule of law possible in a nation that is intended to be slow and inefficient?
Can you rephrase your question, please?
Is rule of law possible in a nation that has laws or rules created to make progress slow?
I think that essentially that is what holds up rule of law. If we were in a system, for example, Jefferson advocated rewriting the Constitution every generation in order to give generations a chance to be governed the way they want. However, this has a potential for tyranny to grow, or for us to let go of our original ideas of fundamental rights. And so I think this slow, measured process, such as the amendment process, makes it harder for us to infringe upon the rights we established.
Furthermore, with the Magna Carta, which was pretty much the basis to the idea of rule of law, it wasn't immediately implemented. In fact, it was eventually just forgotten about. And because of this, it showed the importance of having the idea of rule of law. And as Annie had said, because of the fact that it was just forgotten about, it made our country want to have it very relevant so that it would prevent the abuse of powers within the government, and it would prevent the abuse of citizens over other citizens.
How's technology challenged the rule of law?
Well, go ahead, Annie.
Okay, I think that the potential for corruption increases, as we saw with Congress, who were using information that they found during congressional meetings and using it to put into the stock market or things like that. Shows that in some ways technology and the quickness of everything can increase corruption in our government.
All right. First of all, I think it's the best cross-section I've heard from you guys. Annie, I would argue that Lincoln and his cabinet was also the perfect storm at the most
Okay.
crucial time in American history. Follow slavery into Jim Crow, because slavery, it just doesn't end with the 13th Amendment.
Continues with
It
Jim
continues,
Crow.
I mean, the plight of African Americans until, I don't know, 1980s is, until tomorrow, depending, or yesterday, depending on where you live, you know, it's still a major check in American history. You need to explain Iran-Contra better.
Yeah, I wasn't sure at first because I was like, oh, okay, your question's kind of scaring me, so I kind of just threw that out there.
Yeah, but there was one, the immunities one.
That's okay, so I'll ask that question again.
That was Nixon though, wasn't
No, she was right, but the way she started going about it was Nixon, and then she finally got to Iran-Contra where they didn't need to impeach him, which is right.
Yeah.
But you gotta get that introduction better.
Okay.
Because I wrote down Nixon, and I'm like, she got him all mixed up. And then you explained it, I'm like, okay, she got it, but
Okay, so I was right.
yes. But you gotta go, if Congress really wanted to, they could have gone after Reagan and impeached him over Iran-Contra.
Okay.
But it wasn't the right time. There were other political issues, particularly the fall of communism that was taking place, that prevented Congress from taking that action because any worldwide communism, the Soviet Union falling, was more important than a political trial for the president.
So that's why Nixon pardoned him.
No, you're in the wrong issue.
Okay. No.
Okay.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
Sure. Nixon resigns
Okay.
over Watergate.
Oh, okay.
And then
Gerald Ford becomes president. Gerald Ford pardons him. He pardons him because he wants the nation to move past Watergate. Because it has been such a political issue for the last 3.5 years, not the whole country, but the country's very much consumed in it, that Gerald Ford wanted to take this whole thing and move away from it. So that's why he pardons Nixon.
Okay.
So they can't have a trial, and so it just keeps on reoccurring over and over again.
Okay.
Okay? So two different impeachment processes. One, time, place, and manner wasn't ready. Nixon resigned because he was gone. He was toast. And he resigned before that even happened. Okay? So I ask the question again. Does the fact that we allow states to have sovereign immunity, what amendment is that? The 11th Amendment?
It's the 11th Amendment, Mr. Clark.
Good. Executive immunity, executive privilege. Congressional immunity. Do we really believe in the rule of law?
What is congressional immunity?
In fact, they don't have to be always forthcoming. They can have closed door sessions where the public's not allowed to be in there, that nothing is reported outside of what happens in those sessions. Intelligence meetings happen that way. The hearings right now portrays, because of its intelligence, all closed door stuff.
How is that above the rule of law, though?
Because they don't have to.
Because you, as a member of the public, have no idea what's going on in there.
And compelling state interest means that they don't want, they have a compelling state interest to keep the information.
It's not compelling state interest, it's national security interest.
Yeah.
So how would we defend it as under rule of law?
How would you defend it as under rule of law?
Because it's necessary
using,
to protect the citizens, and then also to protect the secret information.
Okay, so how did Montana try to uphold the rule of law using sovereign immunity?
When they questioned
The citizens united with the corporations.
They challenge Citizens United, which is the rule of law, and they see it as an improper use of the rule of law. Abraham Lincoln abuses the rule of law, ultimately protected the rule of law once the war is over.
Habeas corpus?
By doing lots of things, yeah. He did lots of things.
So we could say like but what are some examples for like executive or Congress? Because I feel like.
I just gave you president, I gave you executive, Abraham Lincoln. An example of Congress is having its power to investigate and holding that investigation from public scrutiny to allow a true, honest investigation to take place to ensure proper laws will transpire and justice takes place.
So we could say that ultimately
Those
these
are
things
the
are
good things.
necessary to uphold the rule of law.
Those are the good things. Obviously, there's negatives to them,
Okay.
okay? President can use executive immunity or executive privilege for whatever he wants. He can blah, 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 the rule of law. Congress can hold all these.
Are there ways in which that can be limited?
Yeah, Supreme Court specifically said in United States versus Nixon that executive privilege cannot be used for criminal investigation.
Okay. Are there ways to limit congressional?
That I'm not aware of. That I have to look. I don't know a lot about
Can't
congressional.
Congress, if a president calls executive privilege on something, can't they rule that can't they like?
They can try, and then that's what happened with Nixon. Supreme
Okay.
Court was ultimately arbiter of that.
So we could say that there are ways in which those are limited as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You guys were 350 exactly. So I think one thing you can add is in Annie, in your last section, when you read, maybe adding like the idea, because you're talking about thus the Constitution. Constitution is made of man, which man is imperfect. Constitution is thus imperfect. Maybe alluding to Federalist 51 in there just to add some time, and because that section's missing any evidence.
I think another thing is I read faster than everyone, and I read Lindsay's part too, so it's probably actually a little longer than that.
I still think maybe you can make it maybe a word or a phrase. You don't have to do a whole sentence.
Okay. Should we say that it's from Federalist?
Yeah, so just allude to it, kind of as Madison states in Federalist 51, men are not perfect.
51.
Thus the Constitution.
So like
Is
if
it
men were
51 or 10?
angels, the government would not be necessary.
Right. Yeah, you can just throw the angels in there and kind of, it's the same idea, and then you can give some tangible
Okay.
evidence to it to make it sound a little bit more strong. Any other questions you had questions on?
I feel like there's another one, but I don't remember what it was.
Parliamentary?
Yeah, I don't know really,
You
because
guys-
besides like the size, like, is there any?
Yeah, I didn't know how to answer
It
that.
allows for proportional representation, so a lot of ideas versus our single member districts, which one person represents us, so it allows for multiple parties. Yeah, I think you guys did a good job answering about the way in which they're created. I think you answered it that America, because it was a perfect storm, created a system the way it did. It's really hard to replicate what we had if you haven't experienced it. Countries gotta work what works for them. Parliament works for small countries. The ideals, the liberties, the Bill of Rights are things that get transferred, but our government is not necessarily something that has to.
And then I have a question. Like I used the example with Egypt because they like redrafted they like made a constitution or something.
The president did, yeah.
Yeah, the president. Okay, so like, how does that fit in? Because weren't they saying that they didn't like the president and like they weren't gonna pass it, and so this was technically above the rule of law?
Absolutely above the rule
Okay,
of law.
so can you clarify that?
Well, all the judges resigned. They resigned in protest because he's making a new constitution, and so they're like, what are we here for? We're out. We're protesting.
So basically, it's not his power to make a new constitution.
Correct.
Okay.
So they just had this big revolution 2.5 years ago, and he's doing the same thing that the president before them had taken.
Okay.
And so everything's above the rule of law.
So could this be another like reason why like systems would be going to parliamentaries because of the fact like with this president specifically, he's above the rule of law,
Yes.
trying to have like this
Yes.
idea of a federalist government?
Yes. Not a federalist, or a parliament where the prime minister is a member of parliament, he can't do that arbitrarily.
Okay.
Okay, he's
Wait,
making
what's the
some
president's name? I couldn't. Was
Morsi.
it
Morsi.
Morsi? Okay.
Mohammed Morsi.
Okay.
Who did that city upon a hill quote?
That's like Bacon in 1628.
Oh, really?
I want to say Kevin Bacon, but it's not Kevin Bacon.
Okay, because I
Thank you, Francis Bacon.
okay, because I thought it'd be cool if we like knew who said that, but that's not in reference to America.
No, it's a reference to Boston,
Oh.
city on the hill.
Yeah, because wasn't
The Puritans.
Oh wait, I'm thinking of the brotherly love one of like Philadelphia or something.
Oh, City of Brotherly Love.
Yeah.
No, that's Boston. Boston was the city on that.
Okay.
Okay.
I think San Francisco is now.
Good job of memorizing your lines, but when you finish, you're looking up or rolling your eyes.
When I got to the last part, it said one word, I was like, ah, I need to.
So you're like-
I saw that you started reading really fast, so I think that like if we did like keep reading, if she read normal pace, we would have been
Yeah, I
at a
think
perfect
you're
time.
fine. I mean, I just think make that one little quick reference. You don't add anything more, but just watch your eyes. Because you looked up and it was like, you get great eye contact, don't look up. You guys are much improved. The testimony gets better every time I hear it. Cross-text is getting better on it. And I try to focus on different aspects of this cross-text too. Other questions?
Hey, Izzy, do you have a copy of the essay that you have did?
I sent it to you.
Oh, you do?
I made
Oh,
an
you did?
updated version of it today.
I
I
have
Okay,
sent it
alright,
to you.
so
perfect.
much to
And I told you, I just like, I added the constitutional references and then I took out some of the stuff.
Actually, wait.
Beautiful.
Wait,
Alright,
Hold
I
on.
didn't know that.
stop.
I didn't know
If I
that,
just
so
want to say
I'll
it.
yeah, I'll
Hang
put it
on.
when I get home.
Nothing.
Do you have change?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Just kidding. Got it.
Look at you rolling with fives.
Okay, I need to go get some counsel.
Rolling with $5 bills. Make sure everything. Take this from a little right bed read tonight. How'd it go, Donner?
Pretty good.
Better than in here?
Oh, we just killed question number 3.
Fourth Amendment?
Yeah, we just murdered it.
Oh, come on, got it. I owe you $4 more. Good.
Hey, this man, I was like,
Hey,
Did you get the
I-
Facebook message with the essay?
Did you send it today? When did you send it?
what time? Okay.
I thought I sent it. Maybe I just wrote it and didn't send it. I'm sorry. I'll send it right when I get home though. But it's like a page and a half double space. So you can figure out how to so figure out makes it 2 if you want. Just use yours. Whichever. Has to remember like
I'll
just a page
attach
double
those
space.
quotes in the video.
Yeah, well actually you can just also send me your version, my version, and then I can my version. So I can go through it. Also any quotes from send me any text. Also read through it a few times tonight and then also tomorrow.
And I'll get the answers. I think they get all sides.
Claudia, are you gonna be okay? Like, is there any way you can call
Sometimes they can just start swimming one way and just start agreeing. Yeah, I know, we disagree, which is great. No, that's a good thing. The other one is, I think she made me cry today. She took it, the ERA, something I had never even heard.
She's been spending like freaking 2 weeks on it.
Have you, is that where you, I'm very serious, that was a rockin' answer. You did spectacular, you should be really, really. Did you tell him what you said?
Oh, they said
Why she didn't want the ERA amendment? Tell him. The selective service, she nailed it. I never even thought of that.
She
That was great.
was Miss Clark. I read that if the ERA can win or losing rights. I'm
I like that
like, this is
argument.
why. Hear that? Losing rights, man. Losing rights.
No, but that was a good, no, but the problem is, nobody in that group said the ERA amendment was great. Everybody else said it was bad. good quote in another test, and it's, that
Still
is
recording.
just brilliant.